นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ One of the commonly repeated criticisms of Buddhist path is that it's based on a paradox. The one's practicing for the cessation of desire, but the very desire to bring an end to desire means that one can never be totally successful, because there's always a desire there somewhere. This is a objection that has been brought up right from the Buddhist time, and the classic reply to this given by Venerable Ananda is one in which he compared the journey, travel to a monastery, for instance, and saying that just as you have to have the desire to go to a monastery before you can get there, the moment you step within the boundaries of the monastery, that desire is no longer in your mind anymore, because it's been satisfied. And the question is also one based on a lack of understanding of Buddhist teachings, in which the Buddha made a distinction between different kinds of desire. So the desire which is based on avijja or ignorance is called tanha, and the desire which is based on vicca or knowledge is called chanta or dhammachanda or kusala chanta. So we practice in order to experience the cessation of ignorant desire, but the only way that we can build up big enough head of steam or a big enough momentum to experience that cessation is through developing wholesome desire. So it's not a case of trying to extirpate, to destroy every kind of desire in our mind, but to channel the desire energy, if you like, into the wholesome and wise kinds of desire. Having said that, it's also obvious that we start off our practice with ignorance and defilements, and for us to have a pure intention, to have desires which are purely wholesome, with no admixture of craving, of defiled desire at all, is obviously unrealistic. If our minds were full only with wholesome desires, then there would be no need to train. Our mind would already be pure. So the model here is of the unwholesome desires gradually wearing out through practice. In the fire of practice, they're burned away, and the wholesome desires are being supported and developed, and they supplant the unwholesome desires. On the subject of wholesome desire and unwholesome desire, or tanha, which is to be abandoned, the Buddha said quite plainly. Ajahn Chah had a number of similes concerning this point, and one of them was of someone walking home from the marketplace carrying a coconut, and someone asking him, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm carrying a coconut home." "Isn't it heavy?" "Yes, it is." "Well, are you going to eat all of it? Are you going to eat the husk? Are you going to eat the whole thing?" "No, I'm going to eat the flesh and drink the water." "Well, you're a fool to carry the whole thing home. It's needlessly heavy." But the point here, of course, being that if you don't have the vessel, you don't have the container, then the parts that you want cannot be carried, and we have to bear with a certain amount of external form of conventions in order to be able to enjoy the essence. There has to be a certain amount of compromise to begin with, which is made legitimate through a clear understanding of why we do so. Now, in meditation practice, to bring this a little closer to home here, one of the first, most obvious obstacles to meditation practice, although it's one perhaps that we can even overlook, is laziness, which often can manifest as reluctance, or a feeling that there are other more important things to do, or an attachment to the qualities, the unwholesome mental states and so on, which are threatened by meditation. Or it may be through fear, maybe through a sense of personal inadequacy. There are various reasons why this sense of reluctance, laziness, or why the desire not to meditate sometimes wins out over the desire to meditate. And something I think we can all have seen in our lives, the sense that there's something more compelling, or that we're perhaps finding reasons after the initial impulse not to meditate, why we didn't, why we're not. But this is something that we have to face up to, and something we have to deal with. We're given support in a monastic community, and having group meditation periods really gives us a real opportunity to cut through those kinds of resistance and unwillingness to meditate. We just make the single determination to attend every meeting, and that gives us a perspective on, or a backdrop on which we can see the various feelings we have about our meditation practice. So it's it's a little too naive to say, yes, I'm interested in meditation, of course, otherwise I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be living in this way. But in fact, our feelings about what we're doing and our enthusiasm and our optimism or pessimism is fluctuating all the time. And this is something that we're able to see or helped to see by having a schedule of group meetings. But at the same time, we also have many hours of the day in which we're not in a group, and those are the crucial times when we need self-discipline and the commitment to maintain the meditative awareness. Again, in meditation is a rather unsatisfactory word to begin with, but maintaining a sharpness, a clarity, a brightness of mind throughout our activities through the day, but also making that effort to sit and walk in the time outside of the times when we're together as a group. And though laziness or reluctance, resistance can take different forms and can be the result of different mental states, different defilements, there is a single most effective way of dealing with it, and that is the conscious cultivation of right desire or chanda, and the means by which we do that is tried and tested and means used in many areas of our practice, and that is bringing to mind, recalling, contemplating the pros and cons, as we might say, the pros of meditation practice and its results, and the cons of not practicing. So the cons, the disadvantage, or what we call the tot, of not putting effort into formal practice, into our meditation, might include such reflections as that we have had agitated, unpeaceful minds for many lifetimes, and we have suffered a great deal for many lifetimes, and if we don't put effort into calming the mind and leading it beyond the pull of the hindrances, then we are going to suffer for many more lifetimes in future. And this is the tot, the disadvantage, the con of not practicing. We might consider that whatever activity we take part in, whatever spiritual practice we take upon ourselves, if we lack the calm stability of samadhi, then we won't be very successful. It'll be a very superficial kind of practice, very superficial kind of results coming from it. This is just an example of the kind of reflection. On the reflection on the kun, on the benefits of meditation, then it can include such things as all the great masters of the tradition all those who have left the cycle of suffering and its causes have all developed calm and peace of mind, meditative stability, samadhi. Samadhi is you can say the catalyst, or the that which provides the base for all spiritual attainments. And without it, there's nothing. With it, there's everything. The bliss of samadhi, the happiness, the subtle of happiness, which are a result of samadhi practice, are attested to by everyone who has developed the practice to a high degree. For the wisdom that will lead us, will allow us to transcend all defilements, to cut off defilements at their roots. That wisdom can only arise in our minds when we have stilled the discursive thought, the inner dialogue, or the inner monologue. So we create the world, we create ourselves moment by moment through our inner chatter and inner monologue, and that we can dissolve that and through power of samadhi, and we can, through insight, see clearly to the nature of our existence and abandon all defilements once and for all. These are the kinds of reflection you can think up your own and come up with your own, but it should be reflection which you are accustomed to, which you have a certain facility with, that you can do quite easily, not something once in a blue moon that you turn your mind towards. And doing that on a regular basis means that you have present with you as a as a constant refuge, the sense of giving importance to, giving respect to, giving precedence to, priority to your spiritual development, particularly in the practice of sitting, walking, meditation, the effort to maintain presence of mind, clarity, sharpness, awareness in every posture, bringing up this wholesome desire for spiritual practice, taking joy in the following of the path, the sense of pride, and I'm using that word in a good sense, that wholesome pride in just working with your mind and doing the work, doing the noble work, doing that which is hard to do. This is a work that few people even consider attempting. It's like climbing Everest without all the modern day equipment, without oxygen, without fancy crampons and everything. It's an incredible challenge, but it's one that one can feel proud to be a part of. It's something which, if we can find that contentment with joy in the putting forth of effort, then our practice will truly be a strong one. if our will, our desire, our wholesome desire is focused too much on the results, then we can still feel some impatience and dissatisfaction with the path that we're on and our own, and be impatient with and critical of our own weaknesses, our own backsliding, and the fact that we're not always able to maintain the standards that we've set for ourselves. But the very fact that you have standards, and that even if you are not always successful and maybe are defeated by the power of old habits and unskillful obsessions, then by coming back to your underlying intention, then you can experience some ease. The fact that you are sincerely committed to standards and to certain standards and certain aspirations. There's something that you come back to, so that these unwholesome ways of conduct, of speech, of thought, so on, the heedless moments are now seen as aberrations from the path. It's not that there are moments of aspiration and clarity in the midst of a cheerless plain, but there is a path, and one's treading the path as best as one can. Every now and again you get lost or lose it, but you can come back onto the path, and finding that happiness in being one who is following a path which has a heart, a path which has a goal, developing that faith in that path and faith in that goal, and then one can feel sustained throughout the journey. So in a way, this is a continuation of some things I was saying the other night about right view. There's this right view, there's faith, there is aspiration, there's a sincere interest in developing meditation, and from that the energy arises to do it, and it's an effort that is not swayed by the daily experiences or the daily successes and failures, victories and defeats, but it's one which is set a path, and it's going to keep on it, come what may. So the danger of giving too much weight to experiences in meditation sessions is, I think, clear to most of us. If we experience some peace and bliss, then almost inevitably there's the wish to regain it at the next session, and a sense of depression and sadness, doubt if one's unable to do that. If we have a unsuccessful, scattered kind of meditation, then again that can bring on a whole host of self-doubts and self-criticisms, and so tension in the mind. So patience is needed, ability to stand with or to withstand the buffeting from different mental states that are arising allowing them to be merely the background on which you progress on the path. As you practice, then different hindrances may say inevitably arise. I don't think that there's any meditation technique whereby you can bypass hindrances. The meditation technique allows us to see hindrances, and in particular hindrances that arise regularly or are the most difficult for you are pointing to the whole way you live your life, or have lived your life, your whole personality. They're organic in a way. I mean, you can see quite a close relationship to the way you relate to yourself, relate to your family, to your friends, to your life, and the kind of difficulties or the difficulties that arise in those relationships, and difficulties that arise in the relationship between you and yourself. So you're learning about both the inner and the outer as you go along. One of the reasons, again, why Ajahn Chah and great teachers stress the importance of renunciation is because this first hindrance is the one that tends to be very deeply ingrained, very difficult to winkle out of the mind. It's the indulgence, the seeking for refuge in pleasant sensual experiences, or in the memory or expectation of them. And that's where the renunciation is needed, where one's willing just to cut the ties and burn the bridges with the sensual world. Of course, we're still living in the sensual world, but it's cutting this longing for it, and the hopes and the warmth and the comfort and the emotional satisfaction that we get from allowing the mind to dwell on sensual experiences. So the extent to which you can do that in meditation is going to be very closely linked to the way you relate to the sensual world outside of the meditation session. And is there a willingness to make those kinds of that kind of renunciation or not? There is the mind that will, on the course of meditation, tend to go either in the way of agitation or in the way of dullness. There are different levels, different degrees of that. There's a coarse kind of agitation when the mind is jumping all over the place, and there's a more subtle kind of agitation where the mind is basically calm and concentrated on the object, but there is kind of one corner of the mind or one little area of the mind where it's off somewhere else. And traditional simile of this is like water running under ice. And so there is a continual refinement of mindfulness to deal with this problem. If the mind is scattered, very agitated, and very patiently, not allowing yourself to get agitated or upset with it, but very, very patiently but firmly bringing the mind back to the object again and again. If this is unsuccessful, then we may use that energy to develop some more discursive kind of meditation. Basically saying, okay, if you want to think, you can think, but you're only going to think about the things I tell you to think about, like the 32 parts of the body, for instance. Is that all right? And I'll give it a try. And that often can work if you just the thought there. It's some kind of there's some kind of energy there, isn't there? And if you keep just kind of damming that energy, then it's very frustrating. So sometimes just recognition that there's a lot of energy in the body at the moment. There's a lot of energy in the mind. And let's use that with a more discursive kind of meditation. If bringing the mind back to the object again and again doesn't work, if more discursive kind of meditation doesn't work, if reflection on death and sober, let your mind go where it wants to go. Just allow it to run where it will, but at the same time keeping mindful as best you can, just staying with it as best you can, wherever it goes. And usually you'll find within 15 minutes, 20 minutes at most, then the mind will just slow down of its own accord and kind of tamed the wild horse, and then it will be willing to come back to a samatha object. So these are ways of dealing with a lot of thoughts or of agitation. Then there's the other side. Often when we just sort of surmount the problem of agitation, there's the problem of dullness, sleepiness, lethargy, sort of heaviness of body, mind. Again, there are different reasons for this, and so the remedies have to reflect that. In certain cases, it can be physical problems, physical illness, or lack of rest, and to be aware of that, and they may need to get up and walk, if it's or to open your eyes while you're meditating, not necessary to close your eyes, and then when it's appropriate to take a rest, to take a rest. One test of whether sleepiness, dullness is physically produced or is a mental defilement is if you're sitting and you feel very sleepy and dull and tired, and then you get up and you do something else, or you walk, and the state disappears altogether, then it seems quite sure that it's a mental phenomena, it's a defilement. If you're feeling very dull and tired and you get up and you're walking and you're dragging yourself up and down, and you're just as tired as you were, now then this is a more of a physical phenomena. Anyway, with the dull kind of lethargy and stiffness of mind is reasonably easy to see, and then there's a subtle kind of dullness, which is a kind of a laxity of mind, where the mind loses its grip on the meditation object. It just becomes a little too loose. So there is a sense of calm. There's not a lot of thinking going on in the mind. A certain kind of brightness in the mind, but there's a kind of dullness or fuzziness. There's not a clear apprehension of the meditation object. And this is one of the most difficult obstacles to overcome, because it can often be confused with samadhi. It's very close. Difference being that although there can be some clarity, brightness, ease in the mind, the apprehension of the holding of the object is not precise. It lacks it's fuzzy, say. So this kind of subtle fuzziness of mind is one which can enable you to sit for many hours even and feel quite good. But it's not, or feel very good, but it's not actually the samadhi which the Buddha was talking about. So as the mind becomes more concentrated, there's both stillness, sense of strength and solidity, and clarity of mind. This is why the sampajanya aspect is so important. Sampajanya, what we call clear comprehension, is that which is every now and again just checking out the quality of attention and the quality of recollection of the object, whether it's too tight or too loose, whether it's becoming tense or whether it's becoming fuzzy. It's not something that you're doing all the time, but just every now and again there's a kind of a review, and there's just a kind of a fine-tuning of attention. And for each one of us we have to find the skillful means that work for us, and it's just not to be discouraged by obstacles there. They can seem to be real ogres sometimes, and things that, or like brick walls that you're coming up against again and again. But if they are walls, and you can climb up over them. We do have it within you to do that, but there has to be this real aspiration to do it, patience, not being dismayed, discouraged by difficulties. Just sense of, I'm going to do this sooner or later, come what may. I'm going to do it, and learning from what works and learning from what doesn't work, trying different things out, trying. If you having real difficulties in sitting, then do a lot more walking. In a day you can walk many hours. In the sitting, then being clear of the value of importance of mindfulness, clear comprehension, effort. Atapi sampajanya satima. These are the three criteria. You can know whether you're on the path or not, whether the meditation practice is progressing. Is there the recollection, the holding of the object? Is there a sense of introspection and clarity around the nature of the holding? To say, is there that wisdom faculty which is noting whether the recollection is too tight, too loose, so on and so forth. And there is that sense of effort, and not just sort of lazing back and just floating along with it. There's that sense of commitment and effort. So it's you can say it's a science, you can say it's an art, but whatever way we want to characterize it, I think everyone would agree it's very difficult. But I think that's what makes it enjoyable. If you're going to set yourself a goal, why go for Doi Intanon or Kinder Scout when you can go for Everest? And I think that most of us here would at least like to have a try at Everest, and I wish you great success and Anumodana. This evening I think I've offered enough reflections for the evening talk.